They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmers podcast.
Welcome into the program, everyone. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmers podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate you taking some part of your day to spend it with us. Hopefully it's going to be worth your while. We have a big show coming up this week. This is officially our second season, season 2, episode 2. I think we've kind of unintentionally decided that we're going to go with episodes instead of weeks because episodes can be different. We don't always do everything every single week. So season 2, episode 2 of the Benchwarmers podcast. Thank you for joining us. Coming up in a bit, it's NFL draft week. It's funny how the NFL has gone from it was a draft day, it was a couple days, it was in a hotel lobby for a while back in the day, and now it's an entire week. And so we're going to talk a little draft coming up in a bit with just some highlights on specific teams. I mean, I think everyone knows that Trevor Lawrence is going to Jacksonville, so we're going to touch on some more of the precarious positions in the draft and what we might do if we were those teams. We're going to take you around the NBA in a little while. There's some news and notes to go over there. We have to go to our website spotlight. Also has to do with the NBA. It's a look on the Utah Jazz by Mr. Jose Ortiz himself. You can find that on thebenchwarmers.com, or you can follow us along on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts. We're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter. And again, you can go to thebenchwarmers.com for all the news and notes from this fine program. Benchwarmers with a Z for marketing purposes. And so we're going to just kick off the show this week in sports like we've been doing for the last several episodes. And we're going to start with the NFL. We're going to bounce around a little bit, but NFL is the big sport in all the world. So we're going to talk that first. And to kick things off, the Browns have picked up Baker Mayfield's 5th-year option. And Jose, I know I didn't ask you how you were. I kind of hate when co-hosts do those little dumb 5-minute things where it's like, how you doing? How you doing? I'm good. How are you? I'm good. Okay, great. Just jump right into it. If there's any news that I need to know about you that I haven't already been told, please share it. Otherwise, I will do the same for you. Otherwise, I think most people tune in to hear about sports, not necessarily our private lives. So the Browns picked up Baker Mayfield. What are your thoughts on this 5th-year option?
So first of all, I'm good. You're right. I'm going to be good basically every show, and I'm not going to be bringing up stuff usually on air. It'll probably be.
My back hurts a little bit today. I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm good. And this is not really a surprise here. This is kind of the move you had to make. I know that you consider Baker Mayfield to be your quote, I believe, is marginal at best, but I actually think he's a pretty decent quarterback who has a chance to get better heading into year 4. I like what I've seen from Baker Mayfield, and I think it gets a little lost when you see the things that some of the upper echelon quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen now or even Lamar Jackson have done. He's not in that category, but I think he's an okay quarterback. He's right outside the top 10, and I think he's a candidate to kind of break into that top 10 in the coming years. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I think that picking up his 5th-year option is a good idea. It's that 5th year, I think, is fully guaranteed, which is interesting. And they might sign him to a longer-term deal. And my understanding from what I was reading is that if they do sign him to a longer contract, that 5th year then becomes the 1st year of the new contract because it's all guaranteed. So I don't think that the Browns should sign him to a long-term deal. And this is a point of contention between us forever. Baker Mayfield, to me, is sort of in that he needs to be in the right system. And I know you can make that argument for any quarterback, really, if you try. But Baker Mayfield is a lot like Dak Prescott in the sense that everything around him needs to be great for him to be very good. And we've seen him, he's and to be fair, Freddie Kitchens was a worse coach than, a jar of pickles. And Kevin Stefanski is a lot better. And it also helps that with him on a rookie deal, they can build basically a super team around him. And so I think this coming season is going to be very interesting for Baker Mayfield because I think it's going to be the make or break year for him.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with the assessment that he needs to have good players and a good situation around him to be at his best. I think that's the case for most quarterbacks outside maybe the top 5 or 6. I mean, even at the beginning of his career, I think you could have said the same thing about Tom Brady, that he needed to kind of have a good situation for him to be at his best, and then he just kind of took that next step, and then the next step, and the next step, and now he's amazing. But and not to say that Baker Mayfield's going to become Tom Brady or anything close. Part of the reason I think that they should at least consider signing him to a long-term deal. I'm not saying that he becomes the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. That's where it gets stupid, right? But consider signing him to a long-term deal is I just don't think it's that easy to replace even what you have with Baker Mayfield in the draft. I think most likely you're taking a step back with whomever you pick. And that's just the reality that we've seen from year to year, especially if you're not drafting at the top of the draft. It's hard to replace guys like Baker Mayfield who are slightly above average. I mean, listen, Andy Dalton was a starting quarterback in the NFL for like 11 years. That's how hard it is to find a good starting NFL quarterback. And he's still starting. I forgot. He's still starting this year.
Well, he's on Chicago. That's not really, that doesn't really count.
It's so hard for us to find a better quarterback that they're just starting him rather than trying to draft someone because they know most likely that player won't be better than him.
I think, without getting into a huge disagreement, I mean, I think that the signing Baker Mayfield to a long-term contract, I agree with you in that you're taking a step back by replacing him, but I think you're taking arguably an even bigger step back potentially if you do sign him, because then all of a sudden all those that talent around him, you can't keep Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, Odell Beckham, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, all the defense that they've been building. I mean, you can't keep all those guys, and
that's true.
It's going to be a problem. And like I said, it goes back to what I said. I don't think Baker can succeed in any sort of meaningful way without a lot of talent around him, and especially against the team like the team that just re-signed their head coach to a 3-year extension in the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin, 3-year extension. This, not surprising. I mean, this is the Steelers we're talking about. I mean, this is the third coach in Steeler history, Mike Tomlin. So I'm surprised they didn't just give him an unlimited extension. Just say, all right, well, you tell us when you want to go, because we don't change coaches unless it's we talk decades, not years.
Yeah, and that's why they've been one of the more successful franchises in NFL history. 14 seasons. Tomlin has 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl ring, 7 division titles, no losing records. I think he's a pretty good coach, and he deserves to keep his job. It's a pretty easy decision.
Yeah, and I really hope that Mike Tomlin goes into the media when he is done coaching, because he is the king of making something kind of inane sound really good. Yeah. I wish that I could have his delivery doing anything. It would just be amazing. But yeah, not surprising. Hopefully they make some noise in the draft this year, but we'll see. In other news, Jordan Reed, former NFL tight end, retired. Sean Lee, Cowboys linebacker, retired. These guys, I mean, we kind of talked about this before we got on the air, and I think we're gonna develop a reoccurring piece of our website, and it's gonna be called the Hall of Lame. And the Hall of Lame, I think we kind of pulled an audible at the last minute, and the Hall of Lame isn't going to necessarily be mean, lame like, oh, that loser, that's lame. Lame like a lame horse, like you got injured. And I think the idea would be that the inductees would be people that were sidelined due to injury, even though they could have had a Hall of Fame career. Like, for example, I'll give you one right off the bat. Bo Jackson would be first ballot Hall of Lame, absolutely. So, but Jordan Reed and Sean Lee, I don't know if they belong in there or not. Sean Lee's been a part-time. I mean, you told me this, and that's the only response I had was after you told me he was retired. I said, well, he's been a part-time player, and he's been playing 3-4 games a year for the last couple seasons, and I feel like Jordan Reed's sort of the tight end version of that, where there's a lot of talent when he's on the field. The problem is he's not on the field very much.
Yeah, players like those are pretty maddening, just because every year you fall in love with the talent, you fall in love with the potential, you fall in love with the possibilities. And then you'll see it here and there for a game, and you're like, man, Sean Lee, like what difference he makes to the Cowboys defense.
Yep.
And then here we go, game 3 or 4. He gets nicked up and he has to miss a game. Then the injury's more serious than we thought, and next thing you know, he's out for the rest of the season. He misses 7 games. And Jordan Reed has been same thing. He's just, from a physical standpoint, he's been fantastic. It's just body just doesn't want to play football. I mean, it just boils down, and it's a very physical sport. It's tough. It's really tough for players to hold up long term against in the NFL, and that's part of the reason why I when we talk about who the greatest running backs of all time are, I remember saying to someone that I thought Emmitt Smith was the greatest running back of all time, and someone they laughed at me. I was like, oh my God, Emmitt Smith is definitely not. It's like, you guys really take longevity for granted, and I don't.
Especially at that position.
Yeah, that's one thing. As long as you've known me, I've never taken longevity for granted because it's so hard to stay healthy in any sport, especially football. I wish Jordan Reed and Sean Lee the best in their post NFL lives.
Yeah, Sean Lee was a 2-time Pro Bowler. He was actually first team All Pro in 2016, and he had some. It's interesting. The 2 stats I found interesting is that Sean Lee in his career only has 4 sacks, yet somehow he has 14 interceptions as a linebacker. That's not what you'd expect.
Well, he was an inside linebacker, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was a middle linebacker.
Yeah, inside middle linebacker, same type of thing. But like, it's they're not really blitzing the quarterback. If you're an outside linebacker, that's when you're going to rack up more sacks.
Yeah.
But still.
And Jordan Reed he was a Pro Bowler once, so that's not great. He has 355 receptions. He has 3,602 yards and 28 receiving touchdowns. So.
You know who would be first ballot Hall of Fame had they not actually gotten into the Hall of Fame? Terrell Davis, where that 6 or 7 year.
He might be both.
Yeah, because he did. I think he did get inducted into the Hall of Fame, so it's it's kind of out now. But for the longest time, like, if he could just have stayed healthy, we're talking about Walter Payton level.
Yeah. He had a 5-year span where he was. You could argue his 5 years that he was productive might have been the best 5 years a running back's ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yep.
So, moving on from that, there's some NFL rule changes that were in the news. There's a couple tidbits, I guess we can give you. There's some extra help for the replay judge, which I think is important because the sky judge, or whatever you want to call it, needs to be a bigger factor. You need to have. There's no reason, and this has driven me crazy for years, where if I'm sitting on my couch at home, there is no reason whatsoever that I should be able to see something that the people that are getting paid to judge the sport cannot see. That's insane. So if you have somebody just sitting on their couch getting paid to be a referee, watching what we're watching and saying, no, guys, that's not a catch. Stop. Like, knock it off. I think that's long overdue.
I agree.
Onside kick adjustments. It's.
Well, the thing with the onside kick is that this is basically a reaction to the last couple of years. They were trying to make everything safer. And so what we saw in the last year is only 3 onside kicks were recovered. And the worry is that now if a team is up, say by 14 points and you're, or whatever, 10 points, and there's under 2 minutes left, there's little reason to really watch because they're not going to recover the onside kick because it's almost impossible to do so because they don't let the kicking team get a running start now. There's all these different things. So I think the rule is now that they're going to allow extra people in the box, which we'll have to see how that works. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I mean, anything to make it more fun and more competitive down the stretch is a good thing. So, I mean, for the most part, aside from that Dallas-Atlanta game last year, I mean, most onside kicks were pretty predictable. Yep. And then there's some changes with NFL jersey numbers, and actually Tom Brady had a tweet about this that he was very upset with. Basically, teams and players can now have positionally, there's always been sort of an understanding that running backs are kind of in the 20s, guards and things like that are kind of in the 90s. Receivers are usually in the 80s, and all of that is changing now. And it's interesting. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not. I haven't figured out how I feel about this yet. I don't see anything wrong with it. I guess I'm a little more conservative when it comes to things like this because I don't really like the idea of playing 17 games. I don't really like the idea of watching a linebacker with a number 1 on his chest. It's just, I mean, I know college does it, but I don't know. I don't want to see a quarterback with 49 on his jersey. It rubs me the wrong way. It feels like when you pet a cat backwards. I'm like, no, I don't like it.
I think I kind of agree with you just from a watching standpoint where when I'm just watching a football game, I'm as much as I watch football and I think I know a lot about the game, I certainly don't know every single player on every single team, right? Like, so, I'm watching, I see number 20 something getting close to the line. Oh, the cornerback is gonna blitz or something like that. There's things I can kind of pick up on just based on years of watching football and knowing what numbers go where. So I think that's going to get lost a little bit. But one of the things I think both of us said that we were in favor of in some past show is expanded rosters where, they don't have to have 53, like maybe you have 60 or even 65 or something like that to help maybe prolong some of these careers or these guys are getting injured, like a Sean Lee, like a Jordan Reed, or maybe they just don't get as many reps and you get other guys out there. Well, if you expand rosters, which has happened because of COVID, maybe, you do kind of need more jersey numbers. And so that's where I guess just from a logistical standpoint, I guess there needs to be some flexibility.
Yeah, and Tom Brady said, quote, he said on, I think this is Instagram, good luck trying to block the right people now with 4 exclamation points. Going to make for a lot of bad football. Which,
I don't agree with that. I think guys will just study the film and know what numbers players are wearing. I don't think that's going to make any difference.
I think it's Tom being, Tom's 3 years old now. I mean, I don't like change as much as I used to either. And he's basically mastered the position, so now it's changing it up, and some of those audible calls are going to be a little more difficult. So yeah, if I was Tom, I wouldn't want to deal with that either. But
fair enough.
We'll see. I mean, I think it has the potential to make it a little more confusing for the audience, and I think that's at the end of the day, that's what matters. Is that if it causes more confusion and more people to not watch or kind of go, I don't know what's happening, then I think the NFL will do away with it. But they usually try things out and kind of see how it lands first.
Yep.
Rob Gronkowski, speaking of Tom Brady, will stay with the Bucks. He set a world record with a 600-foot catch from a helicopter because why wouldn't he do that? I don't know. That's just
the most Gronk thing to do in the world. I guess it's impressive. To catch a 600-foot pass. Gronk's just a really fun guy who I'd love to get a drink with. This is, like I said, the most Gronk thing ever.
Yeah.
Impressive. But
it did make me think back to, I thought Babe Ruth did something like that. And Babe Ruth, he caught a ball from an airplane or a blimp or something from 250 feet above. So yeah, Gronk destroyed that. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Finally, the Ravens traded Orlando Brown to the Chiefs for a first-round pick. And this at face value, the first thing I thought was kind of like, does this matter? I mean, he's an offensive lineman, so it's kind of all right. I mean, I guess it's good for the Chiefs. They need an offensive lineman. The Ravens get a first-round pick and a couple others, I think, later on. But what surprised me the most was if I'm the Ravens, why am I helping the Chiefs get better?
Well, it's interesting. First of all, you're right. They're getting a 3rd-round pick and a 4th-round pick. The Ravens get a 1st, 3rd, and 4th this year, and then a 5th round in 2022. And the Chiefs are getting Orlando Brown, a 2021 2nd-round pick, and then a 2022 6th-round pick. But here's the thing. You and I went back and forth arguing about Dak getting paid or not getting paid this year.
Yep.
One of the things that happened is it got to a point where it's just like, well, if you're not going to pay him, then you need to trade him. And I think the Ravens realized that we're not paying Orlando Brown. He's just finished his 3rd year, 2-time Pro Bowler. Let's get some value for him right now. before we decide not to pay him and get nothing for him. And I think that's really what happened here. The Ravens were just trying to cut bait and get something. Yep. And the Chiefs were like, hey, we need an offensive lineman. So the Ravens, yeah, they're helping the Chiefs, but the Ravens were like, well, we weren't going to pay this guy anyway. So we're helping ourselves by getting a first-round pick that the Chiefs don't have now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. And the Ravens seem like they're pretty savvy when it comes to making trades. I mean, so do the Chiefs for that matter. But, I wonder at the end of next season or this coming season, who we're going to think got the best end of that deal.
I guess it depends on who gets picked in that first round, too, by who the Ravens take in that first round. I just think I'm not saying this particular trade is going to be successful, but I think more teams need to start thinking this way. Baker Mayfield, the Browns just picked up his fifth-year option. This would have been, if they weren't going to do that, this would have been a perfect time to trade him. Kind of like the Jets did with Sam Darnold. They just traded him. Just get out from under the guy, move on, get some value.
Yeah, cut your losses. Yeah.
Cut your losses and stop waiting till the end and getting nothing.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it makes sense. I don't know. I'd be a little apprehensive, and I'm sure. I mean, if that's the best deal that they got, then yeah, I guess you have to take it no matter who's offering it. But all right, so we're going to take a break. That's This Week in Sports. So coming up next, coming up in a little while, we still have to talk some more NFL draft talk. And it's this week, so we're looking forward to that. But coming up next, we have to go take you around the NBA, and we're going to look at our website spotlight about the Utah Jazz. So stay tuned for that and more after this on the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz, and you are still listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Just got done with This Week in Sports. We touched on a bunch of NFL news and notes. You can go back and listen on the Amazon podcast, iHeartRadio podcasting for that and more. The Facebook, the YouTube, the Instagram. I know that's hip, right? That's what you say now is the YouTube. Is that? No, it's not a thing anymore. I don't think that was ever a thing, actually. At the BW Pod on Twitter, the benchwarmers.com is the website. We have some draft talk to do in a little bit, but right now it's time for Around the NBA. And before that, even, we're going to stick with the NBA, but it's also time for our website spotlight on the aforementioned thebenchwarmers.com. Jose, this was your week. We've been alternating. I think we have some pretty solid content up there thus far. And this week, you decided to take a look at the Utah Jazz.
Well, yeah, the way the season has been going, they've basically been the best team in the NBA almost wire to wire. It feels like basically from the first month of the season, the Utah Jazz, I remember you and I sending a couple text messages back and forth. We're like, wait a minute, why are the Utah Jazz 27-5?
Yeah.
It was like, what's going on here? And it seems weird though. Like, I don't think they've been getting a lot of love as far as being championship contenders. Everyone's been giving them respect as far as being number one in power rankings or whatever you want to call them, but they haven't really been getting the type of playoff, the type of postseason contention, being contenders. And I one of the things I like to do, and I think we both like to do this, which makes the show great, is that we like to take a look at ourselves and kind of check ourselves and say, well, why? We're not just going to say this is the way it is. Why do we believe this? And so I started looking at the Jazz. Why don't I believe that the Jazz are contenders? And why doesn't anyone believe that the Jazz are contenders? And I picked out three pretty good reasons, I think. One, they don't really have that championship pedigree. Well, one of the things I talked about in the article is, for as long as I can remember, we've always kind of had this thing where you say, this guy knows how to win. This guy has what it takes. He knows how to win a championship. Oh, LeBron had to go to Miami to learn how to win a championship, or this player doesn't know how to win. It's kind of something that we've just assigned to players and to teams. And I wondered if there was actually any truth to it, right? What does that actually mean? A team knowing how to win. So what I did was I looked and said, let's take a look at every team that's won a championship since 1980. That's 41 teams. Of those teams, how many teams won a championship without having a single player on their team that had previously won a championship? And the answer is 7. Only 7 teams out of the last 41 have won a championship without having a single player that had any sort of championship history. Now, in fairness, some of the players, you can kind of nitpick at the list, and some of the players are not necessarily weren't the stars on the teams, but they still had championship pedigree. But the thing is, when you look at the teams, I'll give you a couple examples: the 1990 and 91 Bulls, the 2014, 2015 Warriors, 2010, 2011 Mavericks. Those 3 teams have future Hall of Famers, former MVP award winners. They're just great players, and I think that's the big issue right now. They don't. Not only do the Jazz not have championship pedigree, they don't really have an MVP level player. As much as I love Donovan Mitchell, I don't look at him in that light. I think he's a really good player, but I don't look at him as a top 5 type guy, which is what you need to be. And they also don't really have a second star. Rudy Gobert is an elite defensive player, but not really offering much on the offense. Yeah. He's okay on offense, but not really scaring anyone. And then the other thing is that there's just too many other guys that like I'm literally thinking about this. If Steph Curry and the Warriors managed to make the playoffs in this ridiculous play-in game, managed to make the playoffs, and they have to place the Jazz in round 1, I'm not 100% sure that I'm taking the Jazz. I might take my money and place it on the Warriors, because there is something to be said about having done it in the postseason at the highest level, which we've seen Steph do. And so, in short, the Jazz are in a prove-it mode right now, where you've been eliminated the last 2 years in the first round of the playoffs. Yeah, you have the best record in the NBA, but are you the Bucks or the Bucks or Houston Rockets, or are you the Golden State Warriors, who broke through a few years ago with a similar having the best record in the NBA? And that's what we have to decide about this. And right now, I'm leaning towards there more Bucks and Rockets.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was just gonna say, if they were in the East, they would be the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, that's exactly how I felt about the Jazz last season and this season, even more so. It's just, and the thing is, the Bucks, I think Giannis is a better player than both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So, it's tough. It's tough to view them as a real threat. I think that I don't know. I don't see how they can make an impression unless they make it to the finals. And I don't even know if they might have to win the finals. I don't see a road where, unless there's just injuries across the board to the Lakers, Clippers, Phoenix, Denver's already gotten injuries. It's hard to think that they're going to be able to really prove it until they prove it.
Yeah, I think. First of all, you're right. If they get to the Western Conference Finals this year and lose to the Clippers or lose to the Lakers, I think that there will be some acceptance, and then they make a move to get better next year, right? So, like, let's say they get to the Western Conference Finals, they lose in 6 to the Lakers, and then they go out and sign Bradley Beal or trade for Bradley Beal or whomever, throw out whatever star that they make a move and they get this. But hey, we've got to take the next step. And they can do that, then I think you can make the argument. But right now, it's hard to even believe they can get out of the first round.
Yeah, but even then, if they make it to the Western Conference Finals, I mean, they could be the next, Portland Trailblazers. You remember, I mean, 2 years ago, they made it to the Western Conference Finals, and they got swept by the Warriors. And we kind of just have written them off ever since, where it's like, well, Dame is great, but they have a pretty low ceiling as far as making it through.
Well, they have to put up a fight. They have to, you can't get to the Western Conference Finals and get swept, right? You've got to go 6 or 7. I think that's part of the reason why the team looked at the Nuggets coming into this year. Both of us looked at the Nuggets as being better than the Jazz coming into this season, just because of how far they were able to get. But yeah, and I think you touched on a point with it's even like the Bucks with Giannis, like he's a 2-time MVP award winner. The Jazz, one of the things I uncovered, and I want to say uncovered, the thing that I found in researching for this article is that Donovan Mitchell averages 26 points per game, but his shooting percentage, his field goal percentage is around 43%. The last players, the only 2 players in the last 40 years to win an MVP, last 40 years to win an MVP award at that field goal percentage, Allen Iverson, when he averaged over 31 per game, and Russell Westbrook when he averaged a triple-double.
I'm surprised James Harden was not on that list.
He was like a percentage point higher. James Harden averaged 44%. So he was it was a technicality. It was like I wanted to include Harden, but I was like, well, technically he's over the threshold of 43%. So I had to disclude it, but he was right there.
Yeah, and the Jazz, I think we're getting down to it, and to kind of transition into our Around the NBA segment, I kind of want to start off by just pointing out this crazy, I didn't realize that this was happening this year, this play-in tournament that we kind of got a glimpse of last year. And I want to try to break this down. So, the top 6 seeds are set for what they are. Whatever they end up being at the last game of the year, that's what they are. But for some reason, the NBA decided to try to take a page out of like the NCAA March Madness tournament in a way. And so 9 seeds, 7 and 8 play each other. Then seeds 9 and 10 play each other. And then the winner of 9 and 10 plays the loser of 7-8. And then I'm already confused. I'm trying to read this it's literally in graphic form on the NBA.com homepage, and I'm still confused. It looks like a flow chart from a chemistry class. That's what it looks like. It's ridiculous. So point being, at the end of the year, I guess what they're trying to do is make it more competitive to squeeze into the playoffs. But I think by doing that, what they're doing is taking that 8th seed, whoever ends up at the 8th seed, that's the 8th seed. Why are you competing for the 8th seed? That's the whole point of the regular season, is to make the playoffs. And if you're ranked 8th, why do you have to fight to prove that you're 8th when you just spent the entire season doing that? I get what they're trying to do, but they're not doing it.
I actually disagree with one thing that you're saying. I think they're doing it for a money grab. And then this is something you opened my eyes to a year ago when we first started the show. I mentioned something, I forget even what we were talking about, but I was like, oh, what a great idea. You're like, they're just doing this for money. And then it was like I felt like someone had told me Santa Claus wasn't real. And I just realized, like, yeah, he's right. They're doing this for money. Like, what am I talking about? Like, this is completely to make up for the money they're losing because of the COVID restrictions. There's no other way around it. And I think it's a terrible idea. Because right now you could be a 10 seed, basically didn't earn your way into the postseason and win a championship. And that's just wrong fundamentally to me. Just considering all the years that have gone by where, listen, you're the 9th seed, you just didn't get in. Like the regular season has to count for something, and now you're making it count for less.
Yeah, that's the problem, and that's what happens with college basketball. It's the same thing. It's exactly what happened with them. No one cares until the tournament shows up. It's just like, yeah, okay. But I think what they could have done if they had thought this through, the NBA, and I'm sorry, NBA, to criticize you like this, but take a page out of the NFL's notebook. The NFL expanded their playoff teams, and what they could have done was, instead of kind of putting up the 7th and 8th seeds up for grabs, expand it to 9. And this way you have the first do what the NFL does. The first team for number 1 seed gets a bye week or whatever you want to call it. And then you can compete for that 9th seed, but you take away what someone's earned as historically a playoff berth. I mean, that's crazy. But you can, if you want to add one and then have a little mini tournament between, seeds 9, 10, 11, or 12, that works perfectly. But you can't water down the value of a playoff seed by trying to give it to someone else. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
And the problem with them already, and the issue with them adding a 9th playoff team is they already more than half the league makes the playoffs. So it's just, they should have just left it alone. They should have just left it alone. Yes. Just leave it alone. Let 16 teams make the playoffs. It's okay. If you're the 9th seed, you're the 9th seed. Come back next year.
Money's in the playoffs.
Yeah, just if they want to make it interesting, have a playoff tournament, a tournament for all the 9th seed through the 15th seed, and the winner gets the number 1 pick in the draft. Well,
I think either that, or if you did compete for the 9th seed, then those teams are actually competing for a playoff spot, and then that could help you with your draft order.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
Because then you kind of eliminate tanking in a way, at least a little bit. But
yeah.
Either way, all right. So NBA, you can go to the NBA.com if you want to see the graphic. Maybe we can even put that on our website. But I don't know if that's copyright infringement or what, but.
Put it on Facebook. Let people.
Yeah, we could do that. We can link it. So the Benchwarmerz.com is our website. I think you know where NBA.com is. So that's that. Around the NBA continues. Where this first story, and we'll just touch on a couple of quick things here to kind of get you up to date with NBA stuff. This first news note is both my highlight and my low light of the week simultaneously. Anthony Davis has finally returned from his injury, his sore Achilles. Yet he has played like garbage in his return. I think it's 7 of 29. Is that what you told me earlier? So it's great to see him back. But I kind of wish that he had brought his talent with him when he came back.
There's a reason why LeBron was getting so much MVP love before the injury. They just desperately need him back. Anthony Davis, not only is he hobbled, but so far in his career, Anthony Davis hasn't proven to be enough by himself to really propel a team into playoff contention consistently. The Lakers were already kind of reeling without him, just barely holding on. And he's coming back and probably kind of upsetting some of the chemistry that they've put together in the, 30 games he missed? I don't even know how many games he's missed. So I think it's critical that they hold on to the 5 seed because then they'll get a chance to go against the Nuggets in round 1, who were just decimated by injuries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I happy to have Anthony Davis back. Not happy to see him playing poorly.
What would be interesting, and I wish that I was smart enough to be able to kind of research this stat, if the Lakers and Nets end up playing each other in the finals, I would be willing to bet that it would be the least amount of games that competing teams in the finals have ever played in unison. Like the Nets have played a total of 7 games at this point together, with the 3 big stars. Yeah. And the Lakers, I mean, LeBron, AD, and take your pick who you want the third guy to be. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's got to be some kind of stat there to
there probably is, but we don't have the time nor the budget to get that.
Or the brain power. I don't know if I wouldn't even know how to start to compute that. But yeah, Lakers are the 5th seed right now. They're 35-25, and they're.
And the Nuggets are the 4th seed. They got to face. You got to get the Nuggets in the round 1. Yeah. You don't want to. That's the dream matchup right now for the Lakers.
I agree. Moving on, switching over to the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks had a 9-game win streak that is now over. It's the best since 2013, and I guess the Knicks are for real this year. I mean, it's feels weird to say they're in 4th in the East. They're 34-27. I guess they're good. I don't know. It feels weird saying that, but
yeah, it's been a while since we've been able to say that. I defining, for real. I don't know, they'll make the playoffs. I'm not expecting much from them. I mean, I guess they will potentially have a first round home match where they get to face the Celtics, I think, if I'm remembering the standings correctly right now. And I would not pick the Knicks for that one. But listen, just give Tom Thibodeau the head coach of the year, the coach of the year award right now. This team was 21-45 last year, 17-65, which is just atrocious. the year before that, they had, like you said, they haven't had a winning record since 2012-13 season. So it's pretty remarkable what they've been able to do without a lot of big names outside of Julius Randle. What I think that the bigger story for them is that maybe next year or the year after that, they might actually be able to attract a free agent and not have everyone just laugh at them.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, Thibodeau is doing a great job. He's got his little island of misfit toys over there with Nerlens Noel and Derrick Rose. I mean, you talk about just kind of left for dead. Yeah. Those guys have made a pretty good impression on this team. And RJ Barrett's there with, and you already said Randall is there. Yep. They're good. I mean, it's weird to say. It's been a long time since anybody could say that, but good for them. Speaking of streaks, the 76ers had lost 4 straight in a row, and that just ended recently. The Sixers are picking a bad time to start to kind of slip a little bit. The Nets are now in first place, and the Sixers are in second place. It's not a big deal, I don't think, but I think, like you're talking about in the West, I think seeding, your first round matchup is very important. So the Sixers need to be careful.
Well, I think so. This is my low light of the week. The Sixers falling out of first place. This is a big deal to me because they've now lost home court advantage. And I know you've said this many times. It doesn't mean that much in the COVID age, but look, they're 22-7 at home and 17-14 on the road. So it obviously means something to them. And you look at the Nets, 25-7 at home, 16-13 on the road. So now you're if the 76ers happen to face the Nets in the Eastern Conference Finals, you want a home series. You want home court advantage for that as the 76ers. And honestly, every Eastern Conference playoff team right now has a winning record at home, and only 3 have winning road records. This is critical to have home court advantage throughout, and now they don't.
Yeah, I mean that and plus like the seeding, like I said, as it stands right now, the Sixers would have to play the Heat, I believe, and then the Brooklyn would play either the Wizards or the Pacers. So yeah, that's not good if you're the Sixers. You want to make sure that you can, for a lot of reasons, get the home field advantage. Speaking of the Wizards, they had won 8 straight. They're like I just said, they're in the discussion. They're in that 10th seed right now, so they technically can still make the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm happy for the Wizards that they're not a laughing stock. They were just a joke earlier this season, and they've kind of pulled it together. This is their first 8-game winning streak since Michael Jordan was playing on their team, so obviously, it's been a while. I'm not really expecting too much from the Wizards, so I think we'll just leave it there.
Free Bradley Beal, please. Let that man go and succeed somewhere. God.
My highlight of the week, I just want to point out Zion Williamson becoming the fastest player to 2,000 points since Michael Jordan. Just speaking of Jordan, he's been very impressive this season, averaging 27 points per game, managing to stay healthy, which I think was the biggest worry. Heading into going from college to the pros, and honestly, you opened my eyes. He's shooting 61.7% from the floor, which what did you say? It was only Charles Barkley and Kevin McHale have managed to accomplish having 25 points per game and over 60%.
Yep.
I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, but he will really need to improve that jump shot if he wants to get far in the postseason one day. But for right now, highlight of the week. Good job, Zion.
Yeah, he also came out with his first shoe.
Oh,
this week. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, it's got a big Z on it.
Now he's really made it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and that's. I wonder though. It's kind of. I really hope that they put some work into those shoes because that was the biggest thing that happened in college basketball last year. Right. Was Zion and when they played North Carolina and his shoe exploded.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that was not good. I remember. I think it was Nike.
I think it was definitely. I'm pretty sure it was
Nike stock dropped like 3 points based on that alone the very next day. I thought it was pretty interesting, but I'm hoping this time around that the shoe is a little more stable because that would be embarrassing. But yeah, good for him. He's making some. He already made money, but he's making even more money now. So that's good for him. All right, that's around the NBA. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. We have to talk NFL draft. We have some key issues to discuss, key teams, and kind of just discuss what we might do and what we think they should do if we were in these teams' positions. So stick around. We'll be right back. This is the Benchwarmers Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting.
If you think or know you had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and after 24 hours with no fever without fever-reducing medication, and after other symptoms have improved. If you have tested positive for COVID-19 and you had no symptoms, you can be around others 10 days after you got tested for COVID-19. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers Podcast. It's been a fun show thus far. This is Season 2, Episode 2 that you're listening to. We made it through our first full year, first full season. So in the same vein as all things Netflix and on-demand, we are doing seasons. This is now the second season of the Benchwarmers Podcast, and very proudly so. The first season, if you want to go back and listen to our humble beginnings from this time last year, you can listen on the iHeartRadio podcasting app, Amazon Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, we're at the Benchwarmers Podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, and our brand new website, thebenchwarmers.com, is chock full of fun articles and information, and it has a recap of everything we've been doing thus far in the last, I'd say the last 2 months or so. We did a March Madness bracket of breakfast cereals. I highly recommend going to see that. It's colorful, it's fun, and it's exciting. So we went through This Week in Sports. We touched on our website, Spotlight, about the Utah Jazz. Took you around the NBA and got you caught up there. And now it's time to talk NFL draft, because the NFL draft is this week. It's just in a few short days. And, by now, if you listen to this show, odds are you listen to a lot of other shows, or you watch ESPN or NFL Network or whatever. You know the basics. And we here at the Benchwarmers are not NFL draft experts. I do not have weird coiffy hair like Mel Kiper. We don't argue incessantly like Mel and I forget the other guy's name.
Todd McShay.
McShay, that's it. Yeah, they argue. And it's funny. I remember the first argument they ever got into, and it was a as we like to say in the radio biz, it was an organic argument where they genuinely disagreed about something, and you could tell from that point forward, the producers of the show were like, "Guys, that was awesome. You have to disagree all the time." And there was subsequent disagreements, I'm using air quotes for those, where you could just tell that they didn't really disagree. It was just one of those like, all right, well, I'm going to say that Trevor Lawrence should go 1, you say Trevor Lawrence should go 2, and we'll fight about it. It just had so much, it just didn't work.
Contrived.
It didn't work. It was nice the first time, and if it happens, it happens, but that's not something you can do all the time unless you're Skip Bayless. But anyway, that being said, Jose and I are not draft experts. I would say we are football experts. I'll give that a question mark, I think. But we know our stuff for the most part. So if you've been listening to us, you know that. So we picked out a couple spots that I think we wanted to discuss, because no one cares. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars are taking Trevor Lawrence. Unless Trevor Lawrence, God forbid, dies in a car accident between now and Thursday. I mean, I really hope that doesn't happen. There's nothing that's going to stop the Jacksonville Jaguars from taking Trevor Lawrence. The Jets seem like they're pretty locked in with Zach Wilson at 2. It gets interesting after that, and that's where we're going to start right now, is with, Jose, your San Francisco 49ers. They have the 3rd pick in the draft, which came from Miami, which came from Houston Texans.
Yeah.
And they mortgaged their future draft picks to get up to that 3 spot. So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. 1, what do you think the 49ers are going to do? And 2, if you were John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, what would you do in that same position? And it might be the same thing.
I think that they are going to take Justin Fields. And yeah, I think that they're going to take Justin Fields, and that's who I would take too. The reason I think they're going to take Justin Fields, there's been a lot of talk about Mac Jones. I really think it's a smokescreen. There's just no way that you trade up all that to get a guy who is probably going to be there at 10. Right? You could have traded with the Panthers, who are looking to trade back and not giving up nearly as much.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense. You have mock drafts seeing Mac Jones go to the Patriots at pick 15. So, not to say that the mock drafts are be all end all, but I just, I'm actually hoping for Justin Fields. I think he has the highest ceiling. As I've been thinking about it more and more, and then watching what I can watch, and it's not like I have access to the all 22 or anything like that, but watching when I'm, what these players are doing. Trey Lance has really only done it for 1 year. Justin Fields has been good last 2 years, great last 2 years, playing for a big time program on the big stage. The one thing I will say though, I have so much faith in the front office and in Kyle Shanahan that I literally believe whoever they select will be successful. I don't like that's the type of faith I have in the team right now. Like just they've instilled the type of confidence where I almost don't even care because I know whoever they pick is going to be successful. I'm actually more concerned about their second round pick because I think it's a must hit with all the draft capital given up last year. In the next year, I think they have to do something on it to add to their offensive or defensive line in the second round. But yeah, at number 3, I think it's going to be Justin Fields.
So I think that you might be right in that it could be a smokescreen. But from what I can tell, it seems like Kyle Shanahan's the type that he thinks that his system is the real star, and he probably is right. I mean, we've seen him make superstars out of, undrafted, unknown running backs over and over and over again, and they go to other places and they just fall apart. I think that what he would want is someone who is like Mac Jones, is rumored to, accuracy is his strong suit. He's not mobile. He's not, anything special, but he's accurate. And I think Kyle Shanahan, with the way that he draws up plays, I think accuracy would be the number one thing that I would be concerned with, is that if my quarterback is accurate, I can draw up plays that he can execute. If my quarterback is inaccurate, the plays I draw up might not, everything is precise. I mean, Kyle Shanahan's entire playbook is based off of motions and, being at a specific point at a specific time. And there's not a lot of room for freelancing. So, Mac Jones does make a lot of sense in that respect. That being said, I keep hearing Trey Lance seems like he's the other one that's in contention, but Justin Fields, I think it's because we're almost kind of bored with Justin Fields. It feels like Trey Lance might be the Mitch Trubisky of this draft, where he is such a small sample size that we sort of just fill in what we think the rest of that sample size should be or could have been, instead of looking at what the actual results are. Whereas with Justin Fields, we've seen him do it. That game against Clemson, I mean, he was obliterated and came back and fought through and played that game and played his heart out. And I think we just got bored with him. I think between the fact that he's been in the spotlight so long that we're kind of just over it, combined with the fact that Dwayne Haskins is basically he's at best he's a backup this season, and he might be out of league in no short amount of time. That hurts him because Ohio State doesn't have a long track record of having good quarterbacks. They're kind of like Alabama, where it's like they're not great.
I'm looking at that 2019 season from Justin Fields, 41 touchdown passes, 3 interceptions. And it's pretty good. That's pretty good. As far as accuracy, I mean, I'm not sure what this is where, cause I don't know what is good accuracy in college, right? Because his career accuracy is 68.4% in college. I think that's decent. That's pretty good. If you can get 65 or 64% in the NFL, that's pretty good. That's passable. I just like the sample size. I just know that he can do it. at least it seems like he can do it. I don't know he can do it. You are right about the Ohio State quarterback fatigue, though. But the same can be said for Alabama quarterbacks. It's not like there's been a long line of successful Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, that's true. And what did you say Justin Fields was, 68%?
Yeah, 68.4% for his career.
So in his 3 years or his 2 years at Alabama, Mac Jones, he averaged 74.3%.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. It's not like to say I don't like Mac Jones. I just don't like the idea that that the 49ers traded up to 3 to get Mac Jones. That's really where I'm having trouble reconciling.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think you do have to factor in, too, that Justin Fields, he ran a 4.40. I mean, that speed cannot be – and he was expecting to run faster. So whether you want to take a knock on his accuracy, I mean, that speed can make up for a lot of inadequacies, at least early on. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. So next up, the Atlanta Falcons are at 4. And I think this is going to be sort of the linchpin of the rest of the draft, because the Niners seem like no one trades up to number 3 and takes a wide receiver. It's not going to happen. So they're taking a quarterback. I think at 4 it starts to get really interesting with the Falcons, because we talked about this last week in our rebuild or reload. It feels like the Falcons are sort of on the cusp between those two worlds. And this feels like the last time that they're truly going to be able to reload, if that's what they're going to do. Or they could start sort of an early-ish rebuild, because they're going to face salary cap issues. Matt Ryan is going to be, I think, a $40 million cap hit. He's expensive. They have Julio Jones, who is rumored to be on the trading block, presumably for monetary reasons. And I don't know what you do at 4. I really don't. If I was the Falcons, I'd be tempted to take a guy like Kyle Pitts, and then try to keep Julio Jones and just have an all-world type offense.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that depending on which quarterback is there at 4, I think I might just cut the cord and say, let's get this guy in here and give him a year under, behind Matt Ryan, and kind of just hope for a Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith situation.
I kind of like where you're thinking. You actually just put a thought in my head. I think I would consider, I would be actively trying to trade Julio Jones, which, based on what you're saying, they are. If you can get a first-round pick for him, you jump.
I'd be shocked if they could. Yes, if they
I'm
get
not
a first
sure. I'm
pick.
not sure what to expect from him. You're probably right. It's probably more of like a second or a third-round pick. And at that point,
second, he's 32 years old. I mean, that's the thing. He didn't have a great season last year.
No.
He was injury-prone early on. So, 32-year-old wide receivers.
I'm not sure it's worth it at a second-round pick. If you're only going to get a second for him, but I think the dream scenario is you trade Julio Jones for a first-round pick.
Yeah, late first-round pick, sure. Yeah, I can see that.
You take Jamar Chase at 4 to basically replace Julio Jones.
Yep.
And then you use your next first-round pick to go draft a quarterback to be the heir apparent for Matt Ryan, assuming there's someone there, or someone in the second round, or whatever the case may be. But I think you kind of have to go for it. Matt Ryan, I think guys like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are kind of, and even to some extent Ben Roethlisberger, are kind of extending the careers. What is Matt Ryan, 34 or 35 years old?
35, yeah.
35 years old. Why doesn't Matt Ryan have 3 or 4 more seasons? Based on what we've seen from upper echelon NFL quarterbacks. So, if you can get,
it's a money issue more so than a talent issue. I think it's just diminishing returns on an increasing paycheck. That's the old Belichick. It's I'd rather cut somebody a year early and save the money than pay him and have him stay a year late and underperform. So that's fair.
I think to answer your question, I think if I'm going I'm taking Jamar Chase if he's there. I really want an explosive offense. Kyle Pitts would be nice too. Who they have there?
Calvin Ridley.
No, who's the tight end there? Not Austin Hooper. They have another tight end there. Hayden Hurst. Hurst is there. I mean, Kyle Pitts would certainly be an upgrade over Hayden Hurst. I don't know. I think I'd rather go crazy to get Jamar Chase, see if you can get something for Julio Jones, and go from there.
Well, and on the heels of that, if I was I mean, if I was the Green Bay Packers and I could give up the 29th pick they have right now and get Julio Jones, I mean, my God, yes, twice. Like, you don't even let the phone hit the receiver before you're on your way.
The same thing, like if you're the Ravens, right? Like you've got 2 first-round picks now. Why wouldn't you go get Julio Jones, a guy who can kind of be that target, that big body target?
Yeah, that's true. The Ravens have the 27th pick and the 31st pick from the Chiefs. Yeah, you could give up one of those, sure. I like that a lot, actually. Because the Ravens desperately need a wide receiver.
It's got to be a team that the team that trades for Julio Jones, if there's gonna be a team, it's got to be a team that's one player away, that feels like they're right there, and maybe even the Buffalo Bills to put someone on the other side of Stephon Diggs. We
have Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley.
That's right. Yeah, never mind. Yeah, no, you keep Emmanuel Sanders there.
I mean, if Emmanuel Sanders is your third option, that's pretty good. If you have Stephon Diggs and Julio Jones, Josh Allen should be thanking his lucky stars. I mean,
But basically, a team on the cusp could make a move for him.
I mean, I could see the Dolphins making a move.
Yeah.
The Cardinals could try. I mean, imagine the Cardinals with DeAndre Hopkins and Julio Jones. I mean, that would make the best fantasy team of all time. The Seahawks really should try, but I don't think the Seahawks don't even really have any draft capital left after the Jamal Adams trade.
Yeah, I think they have 3 draft picks for the whole year. So what they're doing.
Speaking of, the Dolphins are our next team that we picked out in this sort of Benchwarmers on the clock segment we decided to make. Dolphins are also in a very interesting position. They're at 6. They moved up from the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is they also have the 18th pick, by the way, in the first round.
And 2 second-round picks.
And 2 second-round picks, also true. And so this is kind of interesting because the Dolphins, we saw them kind of come on strong last year, but at the most critical position, they seem to have a little bit of a disruption where, they had Tua, but when Tua was out there, he didn't look very good from what I saw. He didn't seem like he was processing information. He looked physically small on the field.
He did.
And he's not Kyler Murray where he couldn't run away from anybody. That was his problem at Alabama. He kept getting run down because I guess he thought he was faster than he was, and that's how he ended up getting injured. So it's Ryan Fitzpatrick is gone, and so I wonder at 6. I wonder what the Dolphins do. If I'm the Dolphins, I look very strongly at what quarterback is still there, and if he's not, I think I would probably I might try to reunite Tua with whoever he wanted between Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith and say, here you go, man. Do what you did at Alabama, and let's go win it.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking earlier about not paying Baker Mayfield. I think Tua is kind of a reason why you do pay Baker Mayfield. Sometimes the grass is not greener, and you let a guy go, and you're like, well, now we have a guy who can't get it done at the position. Tua, though, it's only 1 year, and so I don't want to jump to conclusions with him. I had a lot of the same impressions that you have about Tua, though I wasn't overly impressed from what I saw. To me, though, this is a no-brainer at number 6. If Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, or Kyle Pitts are there, you take them, and maybe I think it's in that order. Jalen Waddle. Actually, I like Jamar Chase more than Jalen Waddle. So Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Kyle Pitts. If they're there, you take one of them. If not, you go with the offensive line with Penei Sewell or who's the other guy? Rashad. Either way, there's another offensive lineman I can't remember off the top of my head. But Rashawn Slater. Slater. Mm. And at 18, I go and take Najee Harris. Go get a running back, replace Myles Gaskin, who was no offense to Myles Gaskin, but he was having a great season, and he's not that good. So imagine if you actually had a good running back there. And that would do nothing but help Tua succeed. So, I mean, Kyle Pitts and Najee Harris out of the first round, I think that's pretty good.
That would be a good score in the first round. Speaking of the first round, the Panthers are the next team up. And the Panthers are in this kind of interestingly precarious position where they have the 8th pick and they're sort of like in no man's land. You know, they don't need a quarterback, presumably. I mean, they still have Teddy Bridgewater under contract. They just traded for Sam Darnold. So now you have 2 quarterbacks. You don't really want to add a third rookie quarterback, because then if you have 3 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, as far as I see it. Mm-hmm. And they don't need it. I mean, they spent their entire draft last year on defense, so you would assume that they would either be trying to bolster their offensive line with a guy like Sewell, or trying to pick up one of those big 3 wide receivers that are on the board. I don't see any other way to do it. I mean, unless the only other thing I could think is maybe you would try to draft a running back to kind of make sure that what happened last year with Christian McCaffrey doesn't happen again. But
you can't take a running back in the first round there, though.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a bad idea. I'm just trying to think of, I guess you go wide receiver.
I think they need to be praying that one of the big offensive linemen, Sewell or Rashawn Slater, fall to them, because, and that's why you see. I think that's why you're seeing them. You've heard the reports that they're really open to trading back, because it is kind of a weird spot. There's not going to be a great quarterback there. There's a good chance all the big wide receivers and Kyle Pitts will be gone at that point. And so you kind of have to hope that you can get one of these offensive linemen that can be an anchor on your team for the next 5 to 10 years. Because they already have CMC, they have DJ Moore, they have Robbie Anderson, they have a decent running back and wide receiver core. Not to say that they couldn't bolster that. They did spend the 7 picks on defense last year. I don't know. I think they should be looking at how to put their their quarterbacks in a better position. So if I'm them, I'm really looking for offensive line help. If one of those 2 guys aren't there, and I guess you can bolster with a tight end or wide receiver. Then if Kyle Pitts is there or one of the big receivers are there, you can take them. But it's a tough spot to be in, because I don't think any pick really moves the needle for them this season. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's going to be that type of impact player that really makes the Panthers go from being a losing team to contending for the playoffs.
Well, it's going to depend on their quarterback play. I mean, that's going to be what it is. Yeah. If Sam Darnold can be what we thought he was going to be when he was drafted, then this team could make some noise. I mean, they have a great defense. They have a very promising offense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be. I mean, they happen to be in a pretty tough division right now. But I think that they could step it up and be right behind the Buccaneers the entire season if Sam Darnold is remotely what we expected him to be, a few years ago. Finally, my Dallas Cowboys have the 10th pick in the 2021 draft. The Cowboys, there's been some talk that Jerry Jones is in love with Kyle Pitts. I don't know what to say about this. I would agree that it looks like Kyle Pitts would be an upgrade over Blake Jarwin. I think that the Cowboys don't need any more offense right now. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. You still have Zeke there. I think that we're good on offense. I think Patrick Surtain is the person that comes to mind, because their defense, as much as I bang on Dak and some of the other offensive players last year, I mean, their defense was the real Achilles heel of this team. And they need to do what the Panthers did last year, is just go defense and offensive line from top to bottom. If either of those 2 offensive linemen is there, I'd go with him or Patrick Surtain, I think, at number 10. I don't think there's any other decision you can make there.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. It's the
They're not going to do any of that, mind you. They won't do any of that. I'm going to put that on record. I don't actually expect them to do anything I just said that they should do.
Yeah, well, listen, it's funny because, it's the opposite. I have so much faith in the 49ers front office, and you have so little faith in the Cowboys front office. It's just funny how that works. But the first name I wrote down was Patrick Surtain Jr. or someone else on defense. They need a player to come in and make an instant impact on defense. I don't know who that guy is. Sean Lee just retired. Leighton Vander Esch can't stay healthy. They clearly need at least one playmaker on defense. That's, to me, is the number one priority. After that, you need some help. You need some depth on the offensive line. It can't be that every time Zach Martin gets injured that the team sucks. It can't be that they're one injury away from their Tyron Smith when he gets injured.
Yeah.
Tyron Smith when he gets injured. Oh, now the team is trash. Like that's what we've seen over and over again. But as soon as one of those two players are gone, there's such a drastic step back.
I mean, those guys are both Hall of Famers, though, in their
that's
defense.
True. That's true. No, and I'm not saying you're going to replace them, but like maybe the drop off wouldn't be as much. Like maybe just make it so the drop off is not as far, where you go from an A+ player to a C+ player. Maybe you can go from an A+ to a B.
Yeah,
that's more what I'm saying. Just more depth on the offensive line where you can afford to maybe. One guy can step in and fill a gap, but you're right. You do have two Hall of Famers there, so it's
yeah. Tyron Smith is in the discussion for best left tackles of all time. I mean, he's unbelievable.
Yeah,
but we'll see. I'm excited for the draft, and I'm a little nervous about the draft. You know, I almost wish I could just be devoid of any sort of sports team allegiance at this point. I keep trying to like purge it from my system, and it's
not going to work.
It's hard. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do. But it's weird at this point. I like maybe if the team that I rooted for was good, I'd feel differently. But at this point, I get more excited watching teams that I don't have any emotional stake in than I do with the.
Good. Yeah. No, when we watch the NBA, that's how we are. Neither of us really have a favorite team, right? We just kind of like some players here and there.
Yep.
And we just follow players, and it makes it so it's just anything that happens is like, oh, whatever. It's nothing really affects us.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so that's gonna do it for our Benchwarmers on the clock segment. I think we're gonna touch on the NFL draft in much greater detail next week. Once the draft is concluded, we can see how these teams did. We can kind of refer back to what we just talked about and see maybe these teams do pay attention. Maybe they're listening to the Benchwarmers podcast and taking notes. We'll never know. But that is going to do it for this week. So episode 2 of our season 2 is coming to a close. You can go back and listen to everything today and all the other weeks on iHeartRadio podcasting, Amazon podcasts. You can follow us along on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram at the Benchwarmers podcast, at the BW Pod on Twitter, or go check out thebenchwarmers.com for all the latest news, notes, and articles from yours truly and my co-host, Jose Ortiz. And so, yeah, that's going to do it. So, for Jose Ortiz, I am Lou Ruggieri, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.